Thank you. When I saw the program theme, at first I thought, well, maybe I should tell the story about my 19-year-old son, who a year ago today was hit by a drunken driver while riding his bicycle back to his dormitory room, which broke all the bones in his face. But I thought it would be much more helpful to talk about the amazing, unappreciated employees and teammates that you all have in your organizations. The people I call your brave-hearted rebels at work. These are people who care more, they're passionate, they look at possibilities, they see problems before most people do, and they are often ignored, shunned, or labeled troublemakers. So let me just give you some definitions, because some people get very uncomfortable with this word rebel. There are troublemakers and there are rebels. And troublemakers are the people, I'm sure you've met them at work, they're sort of whine, and it's all about problems, and it's all about them, and nothing is ever good. And what I'm talking about are rebels, are people who are really focused. It's not about them, it's about making the organization better. It's about helping patients. They are people who give energy. They're people who don't just obsess on problems, but they create opportunities and solutions. So before I get into some suggestions about rebels, I want to share a personal story that I've never told before, but it's about a rebel at work in my family who's in healthcare and what happened to her. So 6 years ago, my mother called me into her bedroom. She was propped up in bed. She had a big duvet. It was very warm. And my mother was dying. And she knew that she only had probably maybe a week left to live. I'm the oldest of 6 children. Is anyone else here an oldest child? Right? We always have to be so responsible. So before my mother died, she wanted to give me instructions on how I had to take care of every single one of my brothers and sisters after she died. So she went one by one. You have to do this and this and this. And then she got to one of my sisters. And she said, this is your most important assignment. You really, really have to help your sister. Your sister, she said, I shouldn't say this, but I'm dying. Your sister is probably the most intelligent of all of you. Thank you. She's the most sensitive, and she's suffering the most. While my mother is giving me these instructions, my sister is a nurse practitioner. She's in the kitchen. In addition to, with the family helping my mother die at home, my sister is studying for her doctorate degree in nursing. She's on the phone to work, caring about some of her patients, and she's answering emails from lawyers because she's just been named in a major malpractice suit at work. So for years, my sister told us about a problem at work, and for a while we thought, oh, she's just a complainer. But what I realized is my sister was a rebel at work. And she knew there was an issue with the medical director. And she never told us his name, she never told us specifics, but when I would call her every week on the phone, I'd say, so how was work this week? She would say, I'm very worried. And if this problem doesn't get fixed, someone is going to die. And as she went through the years, she tried to get help, and people would say things like, she doesn't know how things work around here. She's just a nurse practitioner. Who does she think she is to be questioning this famous medical director with degrees from the best medical school maybe in the world? So sure enough, what did happen is that someone did die at the facility. And my sister, with this medical director who, after hearing my sister, when we would have our conversations every week, I started calling him Dr. Dangerous. So my sister and Dr. Dangerous were named in this lawsuit. My sister was devastated. She was trying to do good. She was trying to get attention, and it failed. So the question is, if you're like my sister or any brave-hearted rebel at work trying to improve things, what do you do? I'd like to offer you a few suggestions this morning. There are many more. I have a blog, and there's a book with many suggestions. But let me give you a few. The first thing is never, ever go it alone. It's so important together at work with other people, with other idea people, with change agents, mavericks, rebels, whatever you want to call them, to do it together. Together, our ideas get stronger. We learn from other people. We get ideas, and we get energy and support from one another. There are no heroes in creating change, but there are wonderful rebel wild packs that we need to be part of. The other great thing about not doing it alone, there's some research that came out in the United States, and that is when 10% of a population, that can be a number of employees, it could be a community, it could be a country. But when 10% of the people get behind an idea, the idea will happen. So if you have 300 people in your organization, you need 30 people. 30 people. If one person suggests it, unlikely to happen. 30, you're much likely to affect change. The second thing with rebels is anytime we're introducing new ideas, there is always conflict. There is always conflict and disagreement. And this is the most important skill for us to learn. And with the conflict, it is not about fighting. It is not my idea against your idea. The most wonderful thing rebels can do is turn to wonder and curiosity. Why does this person, why do they not like this idea? What are they afraid of? And invite conversation and questions. And invite people into the conversation. Because in any change, all change is about relationships. So the most important thing we can do is to listen, ask good questions, and create those relationships and bring people on board. But conflict is necessary. Conflict is important. When we have disagreements, it means that people are interested. The third thing about rebels, I have to say, and I feel very sad saying this, but you have to know when to quit. You have to know when to quit. I can't tell you, last Friday night, it was like 5:30, and I was trying to get out of the office, and somebody called me up. She was a nurse, and she is having a really, really hard time at work, and she just needed to talk to somebody about what was going on. And she explained the situation to me, and she said, what should I do? How do I deal with this at work? And I realized that the best thing that she could do was actually look for another job. Because when no one has your back, when you don't share values, and when your relationships are deteriorating, we have to take care of ourselves and know that we can't change that system. Okay? But the biggest question, it's really what I would love. I wish that I don't want to talk about rebels anymore. I am sort of sad taking the calls from people. And they keep increasing. There are many of us all over the world who, Helen Bevan, there are many people who are taking this rebel thing, and we're getting more, it's getting more popular, and I think this is very sad. The biggest question to me is, how can we make it the norm in our healthcare organizations to have rebels. Why isn't this the norm? And I'd like to suggest a few ways we might be able to do that. So recently, there was a study, it was called the Aristotle Project at Google, where they studied what are high-performing teams, what are really amazingly effective groups of people, what makes them so great. And what they found is for those teams, they have psychological safety. And when people I know read this article, they're like, oh, I guess we need to be nice to people at work. And it's not so simple. There is a professor at Harvard Business School, and this is how she defines psychological safety. A sense of confidence that a team will not embarrass, reject, or punish someone. And it is also a climate where we can show up to work as ourselves. It's not like we have one persona at home and one at work. And it's very interesting when you ask a team on a scale of 1 to 10, how safe is your organization? I might invite you to do that when you go back to work. Most of them are not very safe. So how do you make it safe? We heard some great things in some of the talks yesterday. In Scotland, they have team huddles. At the Mayo Clinic, they use they test for emotional and social IQ among physicians they're looking to hire because they know that will lead to psychological safety. I'd like to suggest two things this morning. One is appreciation, and the second is valuing our different character strengths. So this is unbelievable. People are less likely to express gratitude at work than any other place in their lives. So we go and we might get a coffee and we on our way to work and we thank the barista and it's like, oh, have a good day, have a good day. And then we get to work and we walk into work like this. When we express gratitude, the research shows it's amazing. People are more trusting, their self-confidence increases, and they're more likely to help one another. Gratitude, it's so simple, and we don't do it enough. The second thing I'd like to suggest is that we really appreciate our different character traits and strengths. This is from the VIA Character Institute. The University of Pennsylvania, about 10 years ago, did an extensive research study on what are the 24 universal character traits that everybody possesses. And they're all positive. We all have these. It's fascinating to understand what yours are. It's also helpful to understand your colleagues and then to understand the strength of the group. Because when we're looking at these character traits, we're looking at what's good and what's positive about a person. I'm working on a project right now, and at first I'm embarrassed to say my initial default was with one person. I'm like, oh, he's such a bureaucrat, and everything's so slow. And then I realized one of his character traits is perseverance. And I thought, thank goodness Jim is on this team. This is a lot of work, and he's got the perseverance to see it through. Here's the interesting thing, research about character strengths. Organizations that focus on character strengths, 77% of employees feel as though they're flourishing at work, and they're able to make things happen. So at this conference where we're looking at how do we help people, how do we set the conditions so people innovate, they improve, they introduce new ideas, one way to set the conditions might be focusing and valuing people's different character strengths. Now, there's also a peril, right, of not looking at these. I'm doing a research project right now to see if rebels and change agents and mavericks share some common character traits. Right now, so far, the research is early, but what I'm seeing are those traits are bravery, curiosity, and creativity. The interesting thing is that it's easy to discourage those in small ways, right? So, you know, bravery, I hear when I see some brave people, and then people say, she's so pushy, or he's just trying to hog all the attention, when in fact they're trying to be brave to make new things happen. And this, you know, they're saying, you hear little things about creative people or curious people. We just sort of ding them a little bit. And here's the bad thing. If we keep dinging them, all of a sudden, those traits disappear from our organization, and what we're left with are sort of like spineless people. Or we have complacency, or we have conformity. And if your organization is about conformity, complacency, and spinelessness, there's not a chance that you're going to improve or to innovate. Now, the upside is very exciting, that when we come to work and we are our true selves and people recognize us for who we are, and we're able to live our creativity or our perseverance or our spirituality, these traits are contagious. It's like the most positive kind of virus. So if we show up as ourselves and we appreciate other people for themselves, what we need flourishes. So I want to say, if you are a wonderful rebel at work, congratulations, and find your rebel wild pack. Don't do it alone. Learn how to deal with conflict and know when to quit. And for all of us, I will suggest that it's imperative that we make it safe, that we make our organization safe so people can show up, they can be their real selves, and they can speak up and be heard. One of my friends is an Episcopal priest, and she's a rebel in the church, of all places. You wouldn't think the church needs rebel, but she's a rebel in the church. And she said, you know, Lois, rebels remind me they're messengers. They see early warning signs, and they're messengers to the organization. And she said, I know you don't know much about angels, but you know, the angels were messengers. And the famous angel of all was Gabriel. And he is known for saying, be not afraid. And I would like to invite all of you to take the message back to your organizations. Be not afraid of speaking up. Be not afraid of challenging the status quo. If you're not a rebel, please be not afraid of supporting a rebel at work. I want to tell you that my son, thanks to my rebel sister in healthcare, his face was put back together. Isn't he great? And my sister, 6 months after my mother died, this is my sister the day she was awarded her doctorate degree. And the good news is that Dr. Dangerous was found guilty. My sister was acquitted. And my sister found a much better job. So today I'd like to say, help all of your brothers and sisters at work, especially the rebels. We're all in this together. And it's only together that we can create the conditions for people to innovate, adapt to change, and find really fulfilling work in healthcare. Thank you so very much.